Greetings, Cleveland. This is TV20's Spotlight. I'm your host, Cornell Calhoun III, and today we spotlight Write the Vision, Life Beyond the News Snippet. And my guests today are Dr. Yvonne Pointer and Miss Pamela Poindexter Cruz. And we're going to talk about the book and also a recent conference that's held for victims on crime. Dr. Pointer, Ms. Poindexter, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So talk a little bit, before we get into the book, talk a little bit about the Victims of Crime conference that was held a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you. First of all, TV20 for having us. As you know, my daughter was murdered in 1984, and Pam and I were talking about it's almost like a nightmare that you don't wake up from. So my goal as an activist is to try to empower families who've been victimized by violence to continue to live in their new normal, because life as they know will never be the same again. And sometimes they just need to be guided through the process. So we do the Victims of Crime. This was our 6th annual conference, to gather families together, to empower them, to provide them with information as to what do they do now that they don't have their loved ones in their lives anymore. And it's been phenomenal. As a matter of fact, you've been one of our speakers in the past, and we just try to say, yes, you can make it. So we're so grateful for the Cleveland Public Library that allowed us to utilize their facility. For all the speakers, our goal was to reach 100 registrants, and we ended up with 179.
Wow. And what were some of the events and activities during the conference?
We had an incredible play written by Angelique Sills called A Tale of Two Mothers. And the play was about, well, I think you had Angelique on. The play was about a mother of a murdered child, and then the mother of the person who murdered the child sitting down having a dialogue, and it was very powerful. We are filming a documentary by Cleveland's own Mike Berry. That was a part of it. And then we had workshops. We had the Cuyahoga County prosecutors. We had Judge Rick Bell. We had formerly incarcerated inmates, and their subject was, I apologize. And so they got a chance to talk to the families. So it was really nice. It was really nice. And then everyone received a copy of the book, more than just a snippet.
And tell me about the families. How many families were interviewed for the book?
Actually, it was only 17 families for this particular version. At the conference this year, we had people sign up if they would like to participate in the next copy of the book. So this particular one, there were 17 families.
Okay. And Ms. Cruz, you were one of the families that participated?
Yes.
Tell us your story in terms of how you got involved with this.
Well, it was God. It was a God intervention with Dr. Pointer. My son was a victim of a police chase. August 7th, he was on his way home from work, sitting at a light, talking with his girlfriend in the car, and the car that the police were chasing hit him on his side of the car, the driver's side, and my son was killed from internal injuries. In my grief, right after Christmas, I ran into Dr. Pointer, and someone had told me about her place, Hope Haven, and I walked up to her. And it was actually like a couple of days before. And I walked up to her and I said, someone told me about Hope Haven, and I need to come. And she turned around and she said, who are you? And I told her, I said, I'm having a really, really bad day. And she said, she grabbed me and she said, you're who I came here for. And it's just been a connection with her through the process, because it's a process that I never imagined that I would go through.
What advice would you give someone who was going through what you have experienced?
The day I received the news about my son, God had been preparing me, and I didn't know it. With my faith, with wanting to please him, wanting to do what was right in my life. And I remember falling on my knees and saying, God, I can't do this without you. You got to take me through this storm. And even though I felt like I was in a fog, some of the things that people described to me, how I carried myself, how I went through this during that time, all I can say, it wasn't me. I was just on the wings of God through all of that grief.
Ms. Cruz, what do you think are some misconceptions related to people who suffer the loss of family members and from crime? Some misconceptions that people might have that aren't true, but having lived it, you know better.
Absolutely. I personally can say that when I would hear about crime or a victim on the news, I would say, well, why were they there? You know, what kind of life did they have? You know, who was in their corner? You know, they had to be doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing. But living it, and I remember going on Facebook to the crime page or whatever and reading about my son and reading some of the comments that people had said, well, he probably was out there selling drugs, or why was he out late that night? My son didn't do drugs. My son was coming home from work. They had got off early that evening, and he was on his way home. He had only had an apartment for a month. And his co-workers had said that normally after work, when they got off early, they would go and eat. For some reason that night, Cameron didn't go. So he wasn't out not doing anything. So I had to really reflect on that. You know, I've had those same thoughts, and I'm sorry for having those same thoughts. If you don't know a person, you know, or if you don't know about a victim, then don't assume that they're just out here up to no good, because people can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that is so, so true.
Dr. Pointer, where can people go besides calling your number for support when something like this happens?
Well, before we answer that question, I want to go back to what she just said, because we do make assumptions, you know, and that was the catalyst behind this book, that they are more than just a snippet. Okay, the news reports Cameron was murdered, Gloria Pointer was murdered, but they don't tell you anything about who they were. And for time's sake, we get that. But what we want to try to do is to let you know that they were more than what they reported on the news. So if people have been victimized by violence, of course they can contact me, but there's organizations such as Cornerstone of Hope, which I refer people to, and all the time. They just do a wonderful work there. But I would like to encourage people to know that there is help out there for you. And a lot of times it's in sharing your story.
What impact would you like for the book to have on not only people who were victims of crime, but just the general public?
Well, I think that if people realize that all of us have a story to tell, whether you've been victimized by violence or you just get up and go to work every day. I just am what you would call a wordsmith. I love words, I love reading, I love writing. And the more that I empower people or show them that you too have a story. And journaling, that's something that I tell people, write it out. If you're being consumed with grief, if you're being consumed with thoughts that are just not healthy, get you a journal, get you something and get it out of your system. And that's what I hope, that people are empowered to know that there's hope, there's life after death. And a lot of times it comes, though, by keeping their memory alive in a healthy way, so that you don't, when you say their names, you don't just say it like, oh, they died, they were murdered, but you can say something about them that's healthy and that's wholesome. We have a lot of things going on right now in Ghana in my daughter's name. So when I talk about Gloria Pointer, I don't just say, well, she was murdered. I said, did you know there's schools in Africa? Or did you know there's scholarships? So we try to show you that there's different things that you can do that you can keep their memories alive.
Okay, and when we go back to the book and we talk about the book, tell me how the initial process worked to put it all together. Did you, the families contact you? Did you contact the families? How did all that come about?
Well, to be honest with you, it's all kind of stuff going on in my head at all times. And so I get a thought, I get a play thought, I'll get a book thought. And I was saying, oh, we need to do this book. And then I have an incredible friend, Jackie Payne, and Jacqueline Muhammad, who they just follow behind whatever I say. And I'm like, I have an idea. So we thought if we could pull together these families, initially we wanted 25. But we ended up with 17. And I don't know how you were selected, or did you volunteer? Or
I had prayed about it because I knew I had got all in my spirit. I needed to write. I needed to write something about Cameron. And I just think it was God intervention. I really do.
So did you start writing before you knew about the book? Okay.
You know what? And this is going to be kind of funny, but I'm a teacher. I hate writing. I hate writing. And I've always struggled with it because of the fact that I had someone in my earlier years say something negative to me about how I wrote. So I'm always careful of my words with my little students because those words are powerful. But I still have the desire to write down about my son and about my journey. So this was just a start for me to say, and it empowered me to say, okay, yeah, Pam, you can do this. You can put this information down by yourself. So it was a nice process. It was I don't want to say easy because it was hard for me. But I feel empowered, I really do.
And you know what's interesting about that? I hate writing too, because I feel that I don't articulate the words like I should. But what I've learned about it is that's the job of the editors. You just put it on paper. I don't care if it's ebonics. I don't care if it's this, that, and the other. You just get it on paper, and then we bring in the editors, and they help you to tweak it.
Give me one element of the story that stands out to you. When you were writing the story about Cameron, just one more so of the story.
He was my protector. My oldest son is married, has his own family. So I'm divorced. So Cameron kind of always looked out for me, me and my daughter. And with his death, I felt unprotected.
Wow. He was the middle?
He was the middle one. Okay. So I felt completely open and exposed to the world and to everybody. I didn't feel protected. So that's what I tried to portray in my writing, in my little snippet of him. But it would be more than that when I write my book.
Dr. Pointer, when you were reading the 17 stories, was there a thread or something that kind of ran through all of them that impacted you at all?
I think it was something personal about each one. We had a story, for example, by Dr. Janice McCrae Scott. And just to hear them talk about their children, their loved ones, Dr. Robin Simmons, so it wasn't the grief and the pain that was the thread. It was something personal about them. And I think that was accomplished, that when you read this book, you get to see something about them. For example, I always tell a story about Gloria. She loved grits, a staple in Black homes. Everybody understands that. And she would eat them before she went to school. But then when she came home from school, she would eat them cold. And I would be like, oh my God, that's gross. You know? That's gross. But then when I think about that, I think about with the fond memory, not just of her murder, but the fact that she liked grits. So I always tell a story. If you want to know something about her, did you know she liked cold grits? You know.
I have, we did some interviews during the conference, and I'd like to show one of the interviews from one of the victims of crime who was at the conference.
Okay.
So let's take a look at this interview at the Victims of Crime Conference by Dr. Yvonne Pointer.
In July 8th, 2022, I lost my only son, humanitarian. He was my only child. He was 28 years old. He was shot and killed in a home invasion. He went home. He went to work in the morning and arbitrarily forgot something at home. He rushed back to his house, even kept the driver's seat car door open because he was just going to rush in to get something to come back out. But he was unexpectedly met with a home intruder, and then they got into a situation, and unfortunately he shot and killed my son. He fled the scene. My son had enough strength to stumble out. He collapsed in front of his front yard, and some neighbors saw him and called the police. And so he was fatally shot. My son worked hard. He was a very hard worker and a great father. And it took me quite a while to go to his home. I couldn't go to his home because that's where it happened. And I think it's been close to a year when it took me that I can go to his home, and that just took me back. I'm picturing my son laying on the ground. I'm picturing my son struggling for his life in his living room, and it's just always a struggle for me. This experience affected me, period. I'm an educator. I've been in education for 25 years, and now I'm rethinking my career. And how do you rethink your career after 25 years? You're more close to retirement than other, and it's like I'm just toiling with myself at this moment of what is my next. That's all I know is education, but it's disheartening how some of our kids, and I see that in our schools today, is on that track to destroy people's lives like that kid destroyed my life, killing my son. Events like this, the Right Division, really, it doesn't just relive the experience in a bad way, but retell the stories so people can know that your son was a human being other than what they read in the news. And it kind of keeps his legacy and his name alive, and it just keeps me even encouraged to help others, because it's hard for me to get up in the morning. It's hard for me to face the fact that my son is not here. But this is helping me try to move along and push through this.
So, Ms. Pointer, what is next in terms of the book? Well, I mean, what are your aspirations?
Well, as I said at the last conference, we had numerous families that signed up that would like to be in the next one. So we're going to be working with Rachel DeSalle, and we're going to start writing workshops and get those stories told. Then we're going to focus on the GCUF with the with the documentary. So it just continues to be, I can almost say, born again. You think that your children are no longer here. You think that your loved one is no longer here. But I just think in their spirit realm, they are alive, and we can keep them alive by continuing to tell a story. Now, what I'd like to see, if families who would like to participate, if they would reach out to us, because I think this thing can grow bigger. And I would also like to see people like Pamela write their own book. We see it's not that difficult, especially when you self-publish. So you could sit down to the computer and write a book about your son. It's possible.
And Pamela, what about you? What do you see in the future on how you'll be able to cope with what happened, the tragedy?
You know, on the news daily, you hear about police chases. And I am investigating and working to kind of come up with something that will limit that. I've had a lot of pushback from, the public about, well, you're not giving police a chance to do their jobs and stuff. But I look at a car as a weapon, as much as a gun. And innocent people are getting killed on our streets and in this country because of police chases. So that's what I'm working towards and looking for some type of, what word can I use? Some type of solution.
And I love what she just said, because the police do have to do their jobs. The bad people cannot just say, we're going to do this and get away. So we just have to find an alternative. I don't know if it's, those things you put on the street that blow the tires? I don't know. Stop sticks.
Yes.
So what we try to do is empower people to know that they can be a part of the solution. So often people are looking for somebody to blame, the police, the president, the mayor. What if we just say, I'm going to be the change that I'd like to see in the community? If you could do something about it, what is it that you would do? And I don't know anyone that would reject you coming to them and say, oh, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Police Officer, I have a solution. And what would happen if we all did that? We became solution-oriented versus complaining about what the problem is. No mother needs to bury their child. No father needs to relinquish their children to the violence in the community. But evil can only prevail when good people do nothing.
I like
Period.
that. Say that one more time.
Evil can only prevail when good people do nothing. So if you don't like what's going on, then do something. And we don't get to tell you what it is you do. I can't tell her what to do about police chase because I'm not involved, but she can consider that as a passion. Gloria was raped and murdered, so I can speak from that perspective, but you can do something. You know what, they always talking about how bad the kids are in the schools. But when was the last time somebody walked into your school building and said, I'd like to volunteer, I'd like to help? No, we just want to criticize, but no, be a part of the solution.
Very important. How can people get the book, Write the Vision?
We have an issue because the books are not for sale. We were able to write grants through Neighborhood Connection, St. Luke's Foundation, CMSD. People gave us money to publish the books. So we are giving them away. And because we can't sell them because we don't own the rights to all 17 stories.
Gotcha.
So each writer receives so many books for free. And if people would like to order the books, we can put them in link with the publisher.
Gotcha.
And you can order them direct, or you can reach out to me and I'll try to help you with that. But we're trying to figure out how do we do this, because people want the books.
Yes.
What's the best way someone can reach you, Dr. Pointer?
I'm on Facebook, because we do Facebook Live Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock, or they can call me at 216-999-8573. Or they can go to my website, which is www.yvonnepointer.com. Do you have any of your books left?
I only have 2 left.
Yeah, see.
People are asking.
Well, yeah, we have to figure out a way how to get the books. I had a national organization just email me, we want books. So we're going to try to funnel them back through the person who printed them, and then you can order them directly from them.
What was the national organization that was there?
Thank you. Voices of Black Mothers United.
Okay.
We want to give them a shout out to Sylvia Bennett Stone and the Woodson Center. Unfortunately, there are moms like me all over this country that's a part of the organization Voices of Black Mothers United.
Can people contact them if they have questions?
Absolutely. They can go through the Woodson Center, or they can just, it's on Facebook, Voices of Black Mothers United.
Black Mothers
and
United.
I can get you the number or whatever, and you can put it up, but it's Sylvia Bennett Stone.
Okay.
And I am their state lead for Ohio.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show. I appreciate it. It's very enlightening.
We hope that we don't have a need for shows like this. Wouldn't it be nice if violence was just eradicated? I would like that very much. But until then, tell your story, because you have a story to tell.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. I'm Cornell Calhoun III for TV 20, and this segment of Spotlight is out.